Pay attention to Savannah Spurlock, 22 years old, walking through a parking garage in downtown Lexington at 3:30 in the morning on January 4th, 2019. Security cameras capture her moving between three men she met just hours earlier, steady on her feet but visibly intoxicated, wearing no coat despite the freezing Kentucky winter. She has less than 3 hours left to live. Because David Sparks, 23, walking just steps behind her, has finally found what he's been waiting for his entire life: a completely defenseless victim with no way to escape. This footage from the parking garage would become the last confirmed sighting of Savannah Spurlock alive. This is the story of 6 months that would tear apart a Kentucky community and end with a horrifying discovery in a family strawberry patch. Savannah Spurlock lived in Richmond, Kentucky, a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. At 22, she was already a mother of 4, though few outside her inner circle knew about the twins she'd given birth to just 5 weeks earlier in December 2018. She hadn't expected twins. The shock of that delivery room revelation still hadn't worn off when complications led to her ex-boyfriend taking the newborns home while Savannah returned to her mother Ellen's house. Separated from her babies and drowning in postpartum confusion, the walls were closing in. Just 2 weeks after the twins' birth, Savannah made another devastating mistake. Police pulled her over and charged her with driving under the influence. A court date loomed on Monday, January 7th. She needed air. She needed to feel young again, even if just for one night. On Thursday evening, January 3rd, 2019, Savannah told her mother Ellen a simple lie. She was borrowing the car to pick up some food. She'd only be gone a little while. But Savannah had already made plans with her friend Jocelyn Hutch. They would drive to Lexington, about 25 miles away, and meet up with another friend for Thursday drink specials. No responsibilities, no judgment, just one night to forget. Savannah dressed carefully that evening, choosing a black top and maroon skirt. She grabbed a small clutch, leaving her large purse locked inside her mother's car. Even though January in Kentucky meant freezing temperatures, she didn't bother with a coat. They'd be inside bars all night anyway. That same Thursday evening, 3 coworkers made their own plans. David Sparks, Brandon Lewis, and Isaiah Thompson worked together on the night shift at a local factory. The work week had ended, and they wanted to blow off steam. They ended up at a place called The Other Bar in downtown Lexington, settling into a corner with Jack and Cokes. On paper, David Sparks seemed ordinary enough. He was quiet, awkward in social situations, the kind of guy who faded into the background. He attended church with his parents. Everything about David's exterior screamed normal, boring, forgettable. But beneath that surface lived something else entirely. Something dark that David himself had recognized and documented in a letter hidden in his bedroom. In his own handwriting, he'd written about feeling nothing when people around him died. He'd asked himself how to tell his mother she'd given birth to a monster, someone who wouldn't hesitate to squeeze the last breath from another human being or plunge a knife into their chest and smile about it. Savannah and her friends arrived at The Other Bar around 1 in the morning. The pre-gaming had done its job. Savannah was already tipsy, loose, ready to have fun. Another friend left early. Then her friend Dion Johnson left around 2 in the morning. He had court the next day and couldn't afford to be late. Savannah and Jocelyn assured him they'd be fine. But the night was about to take a dark turn. Savannah and Jocelyn got into an argument. The bar's bouncers had to separate them. Jocelyn, fed up and ready to go home, found a ride and left around 2:30 in the morning. Savannah promised she could make it home fine on her own. Alone now, Savannah began working the room. She was beautiful, confident despite her recent struggles, and the alcohol had lowered every inhibition. She approached the table where David Sparks, Brandon Lewis, and Isaiah Thompson sat. She was forward, flirtatious, exactly what they'd hoped to find when they came out that night. Last call approached. The 3 men suggested continuing the party elsewhere. That left David's house in Lancaster, a 40-mile drive into rural Kentucky farm country. Security footage from a nearby parking garage captured the group leaving together around 3:30 in the morning. Savannah walked between the men, steady on her feet but clearly intoxicated. She wore no coat despite the freezing January temperature. This would be the last confirmed video footage of Savannah Spurlock alive. The group split into two vehicles. Brandon and Isaiah took Isaiah's car with Savannah as a passenger. David drove alone in his black Chevrolet pickup truck. As Savannah rode through the dark Kentucky night, her phone rang around 3 in the morning. Her mother, Ellen, had been trying to reach her for hours, growing increasingly worried and angry. Savannah finally answered the FaceTime call. Ellen would later tell investigators that she could see Savannah was in someone else's car. She caught a glimpse of the two men Savannah was with. The background showed rural roads, farmland, nothing familiar. "Where are you? What are you doing?" Savannah assured her mother she was fine. She was in Lexington. She'd get a ride back to the car in the morning. "Don't worry, I'll be home soon." Then she ended the call. That FaceTime call would haunt Ellen Spurlock for months. It was the last time she would see her daughter's face, the last time she would hear her voice. The group arrived at David's rental house in Lancaster around 4:30 in the morning. The small home sat in a quiet neighborhood surrounded by farmland. Inside David's house, the group continued drinking. David produced a bottle of Crown Royal whiskey. Music played. Savannah danced. The atmosphere seemed light, fun, exactly what everyone had wanted. But then the dynamic shifted. According to later statements, each of the three men took turns going into David's bedroom with Savannah. There was physical contact, but as the night wore on, Savannah began to fade. The alcohol hit her hard. She went from flirtatious to drowsy, from coherent to incoherent. Around 5:30 in the morning, she started dozing off on David's recliner, dipping in and out of consciousness. David and Isaiah helped her back to David's bedroom, one man on each side supporting her weight. They laid her on David's bed, fully clothed. She was drunk, barely conscious, unable to protest or participate in anything. Brandon and Isaiah hung around for another 15 or 20 minutes. As they prepared to leave around 6 in the morning, Isaiah expressed concern. "Are you sure we should leave her here?" he asked Brandon. "Why?" Brandon responded. "I don't know," Isaiah said. "David really wanted her." Brandon brushed it off. What David did or didn't do after they left wasn't their problem. They left David's house around 6 in the morning. David Sparks later claimed he fell asleep on his recliner around 6:15 that morning. He told investigators that Savannah woke him around 9:30, asking for his address so she could call for a ride. He gave it to her, then dozed off again. When he woke again around 11:30, Savannah was gone. His front door was unlocked. She'd vanished. But the evidence told a very different story. When investigators later searched David's house, it was immaculate. Everything in its place. No dishes in the sink, no clutter. One officer noted that the bottom half of every wall appeared to have been recently wiped down. The house had the sterile feeling of a crime scene that someone had frantically tried to clean. Surveillance footage showed David at a Walmart that morning, purchasing bandages, peroxide, and cleaning products. What happened during those hours when David Sparks and Savannah Spurlock were alone in that house? David would never fully explain, but the evidence would eventually tell the story his words refused to reveal. Back in Richmond, Ellen Spurlock's worry had escalated to panic. On Saturday evening, January 5th, one of Savannah's friends found Ellen's car parked where it had been left 2 nights earlier. Savannah's large purse was still locked inside, containing her identification, money, and personal belongings. Sunday came and went with no word from Savannah. No posts appeared on her social media accounts. Her phone remained unreachable. On Monday, January 7th, Savannah missed her scheduled court appearance for the DUI charge. Ellen knew then that something was terribly wrong. Savannah would never have missed that court date willingly. That evening, Ellen filed an official missing persons report with Richmond Police Department. Savannah's face immediately appeared on local news broadcasts and social media. Friends shared her photo thousands of times. The community mobilized, organizing search parties and distributing flyers. The security footage from the parking garage became crucial evidence, showing Savannah leaving with 3 unidentified men. Within days, the 3 men in the security footage were identified. David Sparks, Brandon Lewis, and Isaiah Thompson were brought in for questioning separately. Brandon spoke first, providing explicit details about the night. He confirmed that Savannah had been extremely intoxicated, barely conscious when they put her in David's bed. He acknowledged his conversation with Isaiah about whether they should leave her alone with David. She was out, Brandon told investigators, like a dead stick. She was cold. I'm talking about unconscious. But Brandon couldn't vouch for what happened after he and Isaiah left. The cell phone records for Brandon and Isaiah showed their phones traveling from Lancaster back to Lexington in the early morning hours, exactly as they'd claimed. David Sparks was questioned multiple times. His story remained consistent. Savannah had been alive when the others left. He'd fallen asleep, she'd woken him to ask for his address. When he woke later, she was gone. The search of David's house revealed disturbing evidence. Blood spatters appeared on the bedroom walls and several door frames throughout the house. The samples were sent to the state crime lab for DNA analysis. But the most chilling discovery was the letter containing David's handwritten confession of his true nature. How do you look your mother in the eyes and tell her you are a born psychopath, that she gave birth to a monster, someone who wouldn't care a bit to squeeze the last breath of life out of another human, or to plunge a knife into their chest and smile about it? Weeks turned into months with no sign of Savannah. The DNA from the blood spatters in David's house matched Savannah's. Investigators searched the local landfill with cadaver dogs. Nothing. Police canvassed the countryside around Lancaster. Nothing. The investigation expanded to include David's parents' property adjacent to his rental house. They searched approximately 1 acre of surrounding land. They found nothing suspicious. Savannah's mother, Ellen, appeared on national television pleading for information. I believe she could have been taken against her will, Ellen told ABC News, her voice breaking. This is the worst nightmare. Savannah, I would say to her, please come home to your family and friends. We miss you. We love you more than you will ever know. 6 months passed. Summer arrived in Kentucky, bringing heat and humidity to the rural farmland around Lancaster. On a Tuesday afternoon in July 2019, David's father, Alan Sparks, was working near the fenced strawberry patch behind his house when he noticed a foul odor. Living on a farm, Alan had smelled dead animals before. He used a shovel to cover the spot with fresh dirt, thinking the smell would dissipate. But the smell got worse. By the following Tuesday, the odor was overpowering. Alan noticed something disturbing. The dirt had washed away in spots from recent rains, and he could see what looked like black plastic beneath the soil. Alan's stomach dropped. He knew about Savannah Sporlock's disappearance. His son had been questioned. The police had searched their property. Could this be? Alan called his wife when she got home from work. Together, they walked down to the strawberry patch. Alan carefully dug around the plastic with his shovel. As dirt fell away, he could see black trash bags. They covered everything back up and went to the house. They needed to call the police, but instead of calling 911 directly, they contacted their attorney. On July 10, 2019, their lawyer called the Richmond Police Department. There was a suspicious smell and buried plastic bags in the Sparks family strawberry patch. Richmond police immediately notified Kentucky State Police. A search warrant was obtained within hours. As law enforcement descended on his parents' property, David Sparks drove himself to the Richmond Police Department. He parked his car in the lot, tossed his keys into the back seat, locked the door, and walked inside. At the front desk, he announced that he was going to need a lawyer. At the strawberry patch, investigators carefully excavated the burial site. Just 19 inches beneath the surface, they found 3 large black plastic trash bags. Inside was a small rug, and wrapped within the rug was Savannah Spurlock's body. She was naked. Her feet had been bound together at the ankles with clear packing tape. Her body had been folded in half to fit inside the bags. The July heat and 6 months of burial had caused extensive decomposition. The state medical examiner determined that establishing an exact cause of death was impossible due to the condition of the body. However, the manner of death was ruled a homicide based on the circumstances. A search of David's bedroom at his parents' house produced damning evidence. Investigators found rolls of black plastic trash bags identical to those used to wrap Savannah's body. They found a roll of clear packing tape. Forensic examiners compared the ragged edge from the tape binding Savannah's ankles to the ragged edge on the roll of tape found in David's room. They matched perfectly. The tape that bound Savannah Spurlock had come from David Sparks's bedroom. Investigators also found a backpack in David's closet. Forensic testing revealed tiny amounts of blood on the fabric. DNA analysis showed the blood contained genetic material from both David Sparks and Savannah Spurlock. David Sparks was arrested and charged with murder, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He sat in jail awaiting trial for months while prosecutors built their case. In the end, David chose to plead guilty rather than face trial. He never explained why he killed Savannah. He never described what happened during those dark hours when they were alone in his house. He simply admitted that he had murdered her and buried her body in his parents' strawberry patch. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office agreed to a 50-year sentence for the murder charge, with additional years for tampering with evidence and abuse of a corpse, all running concurrently. Prosecutors explained that they accepted the plea deal rather than seeking life without parole because they couldn't prove aggravating circumstances without a clear cause of death. Savannah's family attended the sentencing hearing via Zoom due to COVID-19 restrictions. Ellen Spurlock faced the man who had murdered her daughter and buried her like garbage in a vegetable garden. She spoke of the unbearable pain of losing Savannah, of the 6 months of desperate searching, of the horror of learning her daughter had been buried just 19 inches underground while investigators searched nearby. David Sparks showed no emotion during the hearing. He offered no apology. He provided no explanation. He simply accepted his sentence. Today, David Sparks serves his sentence at the Southeastern State Correctional Complex in Kentucky. He will be eligible for parole in 2039 when he is 44 years old. Brandon Lewis and Isaiah Thompson were never charged with any crimes. They cooperated fully with investigators, and their stories never changed. While they made questionable decisions that night by leaving an intoxicated woman alone with a man they barely knew, they committed no crime under Kentucky law. Savannah Spurlock's 4 children grew up without their mother. The twins have no memory of the woman who gave birth to them just weeks before her death. Her older children carry the trauma of losing their mother to violence when they were young. The case highlighted the dangers young women face when drinking with strangers, particularly when friends separate and someone is left alone with men they've just met. It also raised questions about bystander responsibility. Should Brandon and Isaiah have insisted that Savannah leave with them? Could they have prevented her murder? Most haunting is the question of why David Sparks killed Savannah Spurlock. His letter suggests he'd fantasized about murder for years. He'd written about being a psychopath, about wanting to kill. Savannah was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person. She was vulnerable, intoxicated, alone. For David, she became the perfect victim. The investigation into Savannah's disappearance and the eventual discovery of her body demonstrated the critical importance of forensic evidence and persistent investigation. Without the security footage from the parking garage, the three men might never have been identified. Without Brandon and Isaiah's cooperation, investigators might never have established the timeline. And without Alan Sparks reporting what he found in his garden, Savannah's body might have remained buried for years. Ellen Spurlock continues to honor her daughter's memory, speaking out about the case and advocating for missing persons families. She wants the world to remember that Savannah was more than just a victim. She was a mother, a daughter, a friend. She made mistakes that last night, but she didn't deserve what happened to her. No one does. The community of Lancaster, Kentucky will never forget the horror that unfolded in their quiet rural town, or the young woman whose life was stolen by a monster who had been hiding in plain sight all along. Savannah Spurlock deserved to watch her children grow up. She deserved to celebrate birthdays and holidays with her family. She deserved a future. Instead, she got 3 hours with a man who'd been waiting his whole life to kill. And that is the tragedy that will haunt everyone who knew her for the rest of their lives.